The ESP family of microcontrollers has a great feature in connecting to Wi-Fi networks. So in order to achieve that, we have to include a include line here first in the sketch, like this. Unfortunately, this library works for the ESP32 only. So in order to achieve the both set of microcontrollers, we can have those lines instead, depending on which controller we are using, either the ESP32 or the ESP8266, which has different kinds of Wi-Fi libraries here. The next step is to include some lines about the network credentials, which network we are connecting to, and the password for that. In a setup routine, we have to enter the connection to the serial interface and to the Wi-Fi interface like this, using the credentials here. So we also like to include a parent line here in order to keep clear the garbage from the serial interface in the startup procedure. So now when the sketch is uploaded, we can reset the controller, and then we start the procedure in connecting to the Wi-Fi. And so we are connected, and we have got an IP address. Well, it happens that we are not going to succeed in connecting a network here. So in this case, I'm going to show what's going to happen when we write an error in defining the SSID definitions, for example here. So when this is uploaded in the controller, compiling now and uploading there. Then we have to disconnect the GPO IO0 terminal for this 8266 controller and reset the controller when the uploading is done, like that. So we start in the connection here like earlier, and the dot is showing that connection is not established yet, and it's going not to be established either forever. So this dot is going to keep on showing dots for dots forever. So we have a desire then to connect another network when one network is not working properly. So now we're going to show how to connect the second network when the first one is not connecting. So what we are going to do is to paste some additional code here before the status is shown, and well, we are going to change this loop here and implement an under the variable I here defined to the value 5, and we put this value here in this loop, while loop here, and decrease the variable here so it can reach 0 at some point, and then limit the presentation of the dots here in this loop here. So it's going to close this loop when this variable is 0. So after that, we are going to change these credentials here to another network. The string verbs is not needed anymore, so we set it back to the original value here, the link here. This is faile value. So now we have reset it back to the original value, and then we try to connect again, and then we have to use these lines here once more to start the start a new network connection here. So then we can have the same debug loop here, showing showing how it's running. This int verb is not needed here because it's defined here. So now we're going to see what's happening now. So setting back these terminal 0 to ground again in this 8266 controller, we are able to compile and upload this new sketch now. So now it's compiling. Oh, it's brackets too much here. Run again. So compiling, uploading here, and after it's uploaded, we have to deconnect this terminal 0 in order to be able to restart the computer after the uploading is done. So there it's done, and then we restart. We start a connection here with the first connection here, which is a faile. So now we're going to the second one, and now we have a connection with the second one. It can be interesting to see the status of the Wi-Fi connections during this setup procedure. So here I'm going to paste some code before any connections is made about the values of the labels of the Wi-Fi status here, because the status is used here to test if it's connected like this, and there are some other values as well here, and here in this printout I'm going to show the values of those labels here, so we can use those values to test the status along the procedure here. I set the procedure here. So before any connection is made, I paste in a code showing the Wi-Fi status here. So it's showing the string value. That's in fact the integer value, because it's an integer value here. But in this printout it's going to be string. So I also like to put this monitor line after the first try. This first try is not going to succeed because it's a wrong connection here. But then after the first try, we have a second try which we know will succeed. So we are going to show the connections before and after the second try, after the first try and after the second try, and like that. So when that's done, we can show the connections, what connections is made here lastly. So now we're going to compile this, setting the GPIO 0 terminal to ground again, and run the compiling and uploading procedure. So compiling there and uploading there. How to set the GPIO 0 terminal to ground first, and then it succeed in uploading it. So set it back when it's done. I mean disconnected when it's done. So when it's done, we can reset the controller here. So now no connections is made before we start any connections. That's obviously the second try. The first try is not succeed, and here we see that the second try, the first try is not succeeded, but the second try is succeeded, because there we have a value 3, which is the the Wi-Fi is connected here. The 7 value is disconnected, so it can be quite interesting to see the status of the connections in the lines here in the setting procedure. It can happen, well, I have experienced at least that it can happen that this last connection is also not made in some specific occasions. Then I experienced that it's possible to put in a statement here which is going to deal with that. So before we connect these Wi-Fi connections here, we can have a statement here to disconnect the Wi-Fi code properly before we try to connect it again. We can also test on this variable here I, and not go to the second connections if the first one is successful. So here we can also make a statement that if I is greater than 0, that means that there has been a connection here earlier. Then we could only then make the second try for the second connections here. So here we can put the brackets here and break the brackets at bottom here, and maybe you should make some nice formatting also here. So now this Wi-Fi is disconnected first before making another connection. Then we could be more sure that the connection is made the second time. So thank you for watching.